Hi, I'm Daniel, and I'm 58 years old. To protect the privacy of those involved, I have changed their names, including my own. I'm going against my own rules by writing this. As a rational person, all of my instincts tell me to stay quiet, find a scientific explanation, and protect my reputation. But now, silence feels like a betrayal. What happened when my heart stopped for 4 minutes needs to be told, even if it costs me everything I've built my identity on. I died alone in my university office on October 14th. You probably wouldn't have thought anything was wrong if you had seen me that night. A tired professor is working late, with coffee cups, stacks of student papers, and an old bookshelf that leans slightly to the left after years of use. For more than 30 years, that office had been like a second home to me. In some ways, my only home. I was writing comments on a student's essay that said it was okay to believe in God. I remember circling a sentence about God's plan and writing in the margin, "Appeals to emotion aren't arguments." I had written it 1,000 times before, but my hand began to shake. My chest got tight. This wasn't like stress. It was sharp, hot, and crushing. I let go of my pen. Then I fell to the ground. All I could think about while I was gasping was how silly it was. I was dying in the same room where I had spent most of my adult life arguing that God didn't exist. There were books all around me that made me feel smart, but they had never really made me feel anything. You might know what it's like to be praised for your mind, but feel empty inside. That was me. I wasn't just an atheist. I was proud of it. I had built my whole life around the idea that only weak, uneducated, or scared people believed in God. I talked about it in class, at conferences, and even at family dinners until my family stopped inviting me. I was married once. We were together for 20 years, Marianne and I. She was nice, be patient, maybe too patient. I loved her in my own way, but I never made her feel that way. I was always busy, always looking for one more lecture or publication. She would say to me, "Daniel, you don't live in the world. You live in your mind." She was right. We got a divorce without any fuss. No fights, no drama. It's just years of being emotionally distant that are finally catching up to us. We had 2 kids, Aaron and Rachel. Rachel is now 32 years old, married, and has 2 kids. As a teenager, she found faith. It made me crazy. We fought about it all the time. I thought she would get better if I just made things clear enough. She pulled away instead. 5 years have passed since I last saw her. Aaron is 28 years old, smart like me but darker. He has my mind, but not my shield. Addiction, depression, and self-doubt. We talk sometimes, mostly about books or politics, but never about anything that matters. I don't think he knows what it feels like to really connect with someone. I don't think I do either. I lived in a world of thoughts, safe, clean, and make sense. But the truth is, I was alone. Not the kind of loneliness that you can see. My co-workers respected me. Students who looked up to me. People who used my words. But none of that made the silence go away when I got home to an empty apartment. I woke up at 3 a.m., feeling like I was wasting my life and didn't know how to stop. None of it made me feel better. You know that moment when you're driving home and you suddenly forget why you're in such a hurry? That was my whole life. Always moving, but not going anywhere. I used to laugh at words like grace, redemption, and faith. I thought they were stories for people who couldn't handle the truth. But deep down, I had my own dream. That being smart, successful, and respected would finally make me feel whole. It never did. The saddest part is that I think I knew it. I just didn't want to say it. Because once you tell the truth, you have to do something about it. And I didn't know how to do it. October 14th was supposed to be like any other day. The next morning, I had a lecture about the death of faith in the modern age. I was going over my slides to make sure that every quote was correct. Russell, Nietzsche, and Camus. I had all my mental weapons ready to show once more that God was just a man-made crutch. But my body had other ideas. I wasn't thinking about heaven or hell when I fell. I was thinking about how Rachel had called me 2 days before, and I hadn't answered. I looked at her name on the screen and let it go to voicemail. I told myself I had a lot to do. I really didn't know what to say to her anymore. I was also thinking about Aaron, about the last time we fought. He was slurring his words, and I was telling him to be more responsible. I never asked him how he was doing. I didn't know how to. I thought about all the ways I could have been a better husband, father, and person, and how I had given them all up for the false sense of control. And then there was silence. I didn't hear any sirens. There was no tunnel or bright light. Not yet, at least. There was nothing but silence. A deep, complete silence. And for some reason, I wasn't scared. That was when something inside me broke. Now that I think about it, I don't think my heart just stopped beating. It broke. Very open. All the walls I had built with my mind, my sarcasm, and my pride came crashing down in an instant. If you've ever thought you had to know everything, if you've ever pushed people away because it was easier than being open, if you've ever stayed up at night wondering if you missed the point of life while going after things that don't matter, maybe now you know who I was. You might have been there too. What happened next? I still have trouble finding the right words, but I'll give it a shot. Because what I saw and felt after I died wasn't what I thought it would be. And the person I met was the last person I ever thought I would see. There was no sound. This isn't the kind of quiet you get in a library or an empty room. This was deeper, thicker. Like time had stopped moving and taken a breath. I wasn't in pain anymore. The panic and heat that were making my chest feel like it was going to burst were gone. I wasn't chilly. I wasn't hot. I wasn't even sure if I had a body, but I was still the same person. I understand what that sounds like. If someone had told me this before, I would have rolled my eyes. But I was there with no heartbeat or breath, but I was aware, present, still Daniel. The same mind and memories are still there, but not with the weight. I was confused at first. I asked myself, am I dreaming? Is this a weird thing that happens in the brain when someone is dying? If one of my students had asked me, that's what I would have said. But this wasn't a dream. It was clearer than anything else I had ever felt. I opened my eyes, or at least I think I did. I wasn't sure if I still had eyes. But all of a sudden, I could see everything in my office. From above. My body was on the floor, just like I had fallen. The face was turned a little towards the bookshelf. One arm was bent under me, and the other was straight out. I looked small, weak. It was almost like someone I didn't know. And still, I knew that was me. It was weird to see your own body. It made me realize how much time I had spent in my head and how little time I had spent in my body. I didn't feel scared now that I was away from it. I was curious. I was floating, if that's the right word, above the room. I could see everything. The broken spine of a Plato book, the blinking red light on my answering machine, and a student's paper that was still open on my desk. Then I saw something else, a presence. It began as a shine. I couldn't see it with my eyes, but there was a kind of vibration in the air. You know how you can feel music in your chest when you stand close to it? But this wasn't sound. There was more to it. something that is alive. I could feel it before I saw it. And then, all of a sudden, the walls of my office fell down. Not blown up or gone, just faded, like a light breeze blowing away the mist. What took their place? I still don't have the right words for it. Light. But not the kind that makes you blind. This light was both soft and strong. It didn't just shine on things, it came from everything. And it didn't just light up the room, it lit me up, every part of me. I was no longer in a room. I was in a place that felt both endless and private. It was warm, but not in a physical way. Not small, but safe. In a way that felt familiar. It was peaceful. I felt like I had been there before, a long time ago, and had just forgotten. I either floated, moved, or was just there. There was no up or down, not enough time, no fear. And then I could feel him. I could feel him before I saw him. It was like the light turned into a heartbeat. Not mine. His. It was love. Not a thought of love. Not a good thought. This was what love was made of, at the same time heavy and light. It filled the air, me, and everything else. Then I saw him. Jesus. He didn't look like the pictures. He didn't have to. It wasn't about clothes, hair, or skin. It was him. You don't see Jesus as much as you know him. He stood in front of me, real, bright, and too much to handle. As soon as I saw his eyes, I lost it. Not out of fear, not because of shame, out of love. I saw everything I had ever done in his eyes. Every mean thing said, every proud speech. Every time I pushed someone away. I saw it all, but not in a flash of anger. It was like pages of a book being opened slowly. And yet, he didn't look angry. There was sadness that hurts deeply. Like how sad a father feels when he sees his child go through pain over and over again. But there was also love. So much love. I don't think I had ever really loved anyone before then. Not like this. I had heard people say, God is love, my whole life. But I thought it was lazy theology. But I knew what it meant when I stood there with Jesus looking at me. He was love. His presence enveloped me, not as arms, but as a combination of light, sound, and warmth. And I cried. I didn't just cry. I wept. Years of pride left me. My knees would have buckled if I had them. I fell to the ground in front of him and cried like a child. He moved closer. I could feel his hand on me and in me. Not in a physical way, in a spiritual way. Very much. He touched the part of me that I didn't even know needed to be healed. He didn't say anything at first. But in that silence, everything he needed to say was already being said. I had spent my whole life arguing with him, writing essays, giving talks, telling the people who tried to tell me about him to go away. And there he was, not to argue or teach, but to love, to welcome me. It broke me. You know how it feels when someone you love forgives you before you even ask? You can get close by multiplying that by forever. I wasn't defending myself for the first time in my life. I wasn't trying to be smart. I wasn't acting like I was okay. I was just me. And he cared for me. I knew I was home at that moment. Not because of where I was, but because of who I was with. He looked at me in a way that made me feel like time was standing still. And I knew this wasn't a dream. Not a dream. Not the work of a dying brain. This was the truth I had been running from my whole life. I didn't say to him, "Are you real?" I didn't need to. Yes, he was. More real than anything else I had ever seen. There were no fights, no puzzles that make sense, no smart questions, just love, and peace and him. I don't know how long I cried in front of him. Things didn't work the same way anymore, but I could have stayed there forever. I wanted to stay there forever. But there was a small change in the way he looked at me, like a father softly telling his child that it's time to go home. That moment, when I said goodbye for the first time, was the hardest thing I've ever done. But I still understood, because I still had more to see. He had to show me more. And I knew deep down that his love wasn't just for me. It was for everyone. Even those who don't believe. Even the ones who won't listen. Even the people who had spent their whole lives denying him. People like me. I don't know how long I was on my knees in front of him. It could have been seconds, or hundreds of years. It didn't matter what time it was. All I knew was that I didn't want to go. I didn't want to talk. I just wanted to stay in that light and love, where all I had to do was accept it. But Jesus did talk. His voice wasn't very loud. It didn't sound like it echoed or boomed like I thought it would. It was soft, powerful, like water flowing through stone, soft enough to comfort me, but deep enough to shake something inside me that had been frozen for years. He said my name, not just Daniel, but my full name. The way my mom used to say it when I was a kid and hurt my knee, except even softer, like he had known me for a long time before my mother did. Daniel, he said, you've been running for a long time. I couldn't say anything. It felt like my throat was locked, but the tears came again. Because I knew he was right. Jesus looked at me, not with anger, but with deep, aching sadness, like someone who had seen someone they loved get lost over and over again. You thought your mind would keep you safe, he said. You thought that knowing would keep you from hurting. But knowledge without love is like a wall, and you've been hiding behind it for most of your life. I tried to defend myself by opening my mouth, but I couldn't. Because every word he said broke through the armor I had spent my whole life building. He got down on his knees next to me. You would think that he would be above me, since I made fun of him in class, turned my daughter away because of her faith, and never thanked him for breath, time, or family. Stand over me. Please correct me. But he didn't. He came down to see me, in person. His presence was both light and strength and safety. And now his eyes, which were still sad, held something else. Hope, he said softly. You didn't push me away because you hated me. You pushed me away because you were hurt. When your parents broke up, you were mad. You saw people use my name to control and shame, and you thought that was me. He stopped for a moment and said it clearly. That wasn't me. I cried, not because I felt exposed, but because I felt like I was being watched. I tried to make sense of the world, I said softly. I thought I'd feel safe if I could just understand everything. I know, he said. Did you see it? I asked. Jesus nodded his head. Every second, you looked at the ceiling every night and thought about what else there might be. I saw you cry quietly after Marianne left, when you were in your car after your father's funeral and couldn't bring yourself to pray. I heard Rachel pray for you. I heard Aaron's silence. I never left. The words touched a part of me that I didn't know was still alive. I had always hoped that maybe, just maybe, someone had seen me. Not the teacher. Not the person who doesn't believe in God. Just me. We were somewhere else all of a sudden when Jesus raised his hand. It wasn't a real place. It felt more like a vision, but it was real, clear, and undeniable. I saw rooms where people give lectures, my own classroom. Many, maybe even hundreds, of young faces, students I had taught in the past, a little curious, some not sure, some are eager. I saw myself at the front, confident, sharp, and laughing as I called faith an old mind. Jesus showed me how some of those kids took what I said home with them, how they stopped going to church, how some people made fun of their own parents. After I praised her essay that questioned faith, one girl threw her Bible away. After deciding that life had no meaning, one boy turned to drugs. I got down on my knees again. I whispered, "I didn't mean to do that." "I know," Jesus said softly. "But the truth isn't neutral. What we teach is important, especially to the young." After that, the vision changed again. I saw Rachel, who was younger, sitting on her bed with tears streaming down her face as she prayed for me. I saw her journal, and in it she wrote, "God, please show my dad you are real, even if it means a miracle." I saw Aaron alone in his apartment, the light from a computer screen on his face as he scrolled through dark forums. His eyes were blank. I saw the pills, the silence. I couldn't get any air. Even in that place, the sadness felt like a heavy blanket around me. Jesus put his hand on my shoulder. "You told people I was a myth," he said, "but I still came for you, because I love you, not because of what you knew or didn't know, but because you're mine." I then looked at him, completely. And for the first time, I really believed, not just in him, but in his heart as well. I asked, "Why me? Why are you showing me all this now? I don't deserve it." He smiled, gentle, sad, powerful. "Because they need to know," he said. "Those who think like you did, the people who think, the people who aren't sure, those who are too proud to show their pain, the people who have been hurt by people who said they knew me. They need to know the real me." I knew what he wanted, but I didn't want to go. I felt like a kid again, safe in the arms of someone who would never leave, lie, or walk away. I was whole for the first time in my life. Why would I want to go back? "I can't," I said. "I don't want to leave you." He didn't hurry me. He looked at me with kindness that would last forever. He said, "I'm always with you. But there are people who need to hear from someone like you. Someone who has been through it, who had doubts, who fought me, who found me." "But I'm not good enough," I said. He said, "No one is. That's why it's called grace." I cried again, not because I'm scared, not because I'm sorry. I was so thankful that I didn't know what to do with it. Then he picked me up very gently and set me down. He promised, "I will walk with you. And when it's time to come home, I'll be there." I wanted to remember every part of his face, his voice, his love. But things were already starting to change, a pulling, like the wind pulling at my soul. He leant in and said one last thing. "Tell them I never stopped loving them." And then everything went dark. I gasped when I woke up. There was no light. The warmth, the tranquility, fluorescent ceiling panels have taken its place. Chilly air, machines that beep. My chest hurts. I have tubes in my arms. The strong antiseptic odor. I panicked for a second. "No," I thought. "Please, not just yet. Don't take me away from him. Not right now." I cried because I felt as though I had been ripped from the one place where I had ever truly belonged, not because I was afraid. Then I heard a voice, gentle, known. "Dad?" I looked around. It was Rachel. She had tears in her eyes, and her hand was shaking as it held mine. She appeared older and more worn out than I had remembered. but she was still stunning and full of something in her that I had always tried to make fun of. "Faith, you're all right," she muttered. "You've returned." I didn't say anything at first. I was unable to. All I did was cry, and I didn't hold it back this time. I finally allowed myself to be human after years of logically separating my feelings from facts and theories. I gave her hand a squeeze. I said, "I saw him." Tears streaming down her face, she nodded. "I understand." I learned the truth later. After discovering me unconscious in my office, the janitor dialed 911. For 12 minutes, I was clinically dead. No heartbeat, not breathing, lost. That same week, Rachel had flown in from Texas. She claimed to have had an odd, urgent urge to attend. She told me, God wouldn't let me be alone about it. Through the oxygen mask, I grinned. I assumed he never did. Although the recuperation wasn't easy, the initial days in the hospital weren't physically taxing. Feeling as though I had left something flawless behind was the most difficult aspect. I felt as though I was still reaching back for Jesus in that bright spot. Then I recalled what he had said. Tell them I still love them. So I did. It began modestly. I asked Rachel if I could meet her grandchildren. Yes, she replied. From my hospital bed, I FaceTimed them. Initially, they were timid. Since I had never tried before, I didn't hold it against them. However, I told them about the Jesus I encountered. He's not just in church stories, I said. He is genuine. You will never comprehend how much he loves you. Their eyes glowed. Even the young one had inquiries. I then gave Aaron a call. I had been avoiding that call for years. I was uncertain if he would respond. However, he did. He sounded sleepy, protected. I told him everything. He listened without saying much. There was silence when I was done. You believe now? He asked. Yes, I replied. With all of my heart. One more pause, then softly. I'm happy, Dad. I've needed you. I was broken by it. Since then, we have spoken daily. I no longer give him lectures. I pay attention. I inquire about his emotional state. I declare my love for him. I mean it now, not because I have to. I retired from teaching after I was discharged from the hospital. Walked away from the full lecture schedule, the job, and the reputation. I gave up the office where I died. People questioned why. Because life is too short to waste proving yourself correct when you could be learning how to love, I said. To be nearer to Rachel and her family, I relocated to Texas. I rent a small home close by. The children are picked up from school by me. I offer homework assistance. I tell them true stories about Jesus meeting their grandfather in eternity and sending him back on a mission. I still write, but not as much as I used to. No more essays that disparage religion. No more shrewd arguments. Furthermore, winning debates is not the goal. It's about how my life was changed by love. I used to feel uneasy at church. It feels like home now. I became a member of Rachel's church. I half expected to be struck by lightning when I first walked in. Instead, I discovered grace, hugs, and a room full of people who had been praying for me for years. I didn't even know some of them. One Sunday, I testified. The man who used to stand in front of crowded lecture halls, me, was anxious. However, this was not like the others. I wasn't trying to impress anyone this time. I was talking to establish a connection. I was where many of your children, your friends, maybe even you are, I said, glancing out at those faces. I firmly believed that God did not exist. I blocked out my heart with my mind. However, Jesus was in front of me when I passed away. He also refrained from arguing. He cherished me. I have since given speeches on college campuses, occasionally to pupils who shared my traits, being abrasive, arrogant, and proud. I don't attempt to outsmart them. I simply share my story. I understand what it's like to feel isolated in a crowd, I say. To believe that intelligence is sufficient. To conceal your injuries with humor. But despite everything, there is a love that declares, "You are mine." They do listen occasionally. They occasionally chuckle. Still, I sow the seed. My days are slower now. Scripture is what I read more than philosophy. In the backyard, I observe the birds. Rachel and I share a cup of coffee. I've never cried so much. However, I also laugh more. I flew to be with Aaron when he went into rehab. On the first day, I sat next to him, took his hand. We didn't talk much. He was aware of my presence, though. Being there is what counts now. Not demonstrating, not arguing, simply spending time with the people that God has given me. My priorities have changed. Work is less important than family. Credentials are not as important as conversations. Health is more important than overtime. I used to disregard my relationships, my body, and my soul. No longer. I now live with eternity in mind. Because nothing compares to standing in front of Jesus. I think of his eyes when the world becomes noisy and doubt returns, as it occasionally does. His tone, his remarks. Tell them I still love them. So I do. If you are reading this right now, you may be in my shoes. Doubtful. I was hurt. Tired of religion. Perhaps you've heard that God is disappointed in you, angry or aloof. Perhaps you've thought you're too far gone, or that faith is a sign of weakness. Let me tell you what I firmly believe now. You are not too far gone. You are loved. Furthermore, Jesus is not who you believe him to be. He's better. I used to ridicule belief while sitting in a dimly lit office with books all around me. With my family by my side, I sit in a bright living room now and give thanks to God for another day. Same mind, new heart, same man, new life, all because of one moment, one name, one love that never gave up on me. Before ending, please type Amen if you believe God can still reach you even in your darkest moments, and let me know where you're watching from. I'd love to know I'm not alone in this.